the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up!
Welcome everybody to another episode of CorbinCenter. Now we have been waiting to talk about this episode. This was going to be what I hyped up as a deciding turning point for the fusion. And as you know, I, Darin Corbin, the loudmouth from the Lakes area, was putting a lot of my chips all in, and if I would have done, I would have busted big time. I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. I don't generally like to, have to admit that I'm wrong, but I will. It's so respectable for me to do so, and it's in this case here, I have to. I was saying that when this team came into, we talked about the consistency, 11-5. Only difference this year is that they didn't earn home field advantage, and I was going to say they were potentially had the chance to get through the conference championship with the way that they played. They didn't have a second half collapse like we're normally used to. I think they were just saving that for when they met the Browns in the playoffs. And ideally, we don't even need to talk about the game per se. The deal is the Browns won the regular season game. They also just knocked them out of the playoffs in the division round, which is the round that they've gotten by. So this team, notoriously, who we were like, oh, they got to get past the conference championship. They got to get past that. They got to win. They got to get to the Super Bowl. Anything less would be a failure. Well, here we go. And I think some of the team recognized that it would be a potential failure. And while I thought that this was going to go in a whole lot of different directions, I did not expect the exodus that was coming. So let's stick with this real quick. First and foremost, they made an offer to re-sign Greg, and he didn't take it. He took the Dallas Cowboys head coach offer. I mean, again, if you look on paper, he did 3 years in the playoffs. He won Coach of the Year, 11-5. So he has a 33-15 record, and then in the playoffs, he's 3-3. Yeah, I mean, that's respectable. And Dallas needed a head coach, and they outbid him. But the Fusion ended up signing somebody who I think might fit this team a little bit better. We'll see how the offense and everything comes together with the playbook, but they signed Hank Douglas as a head coach. And the thing about Hank, when you look at his record, it's not the win percentage is not as high, but he's 8-2 in the playoffs, including 1 Super Bowl victory and 1 Super Bowl loss. So he's been to the Super Bowl twice, which means that this potentially could lead this team past that conference championship. That was great. They re-signed Mike Tice as the offensive coordinator. There's nothing wrong with that. And then George Huey came on board as a special teams coach. Now, remember we were talking about some of the deals with how the offensive line would shape up because you had Tonka Fool's Gold and you had Matt Grucey's contracts being up. Well, everybody that we brought up, Trombo, Sturgis, Grucey, and Fool's Gold, all became restricted free agents. And while they're sitting with 2 draft picks, I think the team realized what it was. And when they made the offer to Tonka, Atlanta made a better one. Now, it left him with the second-round pick in compensation. That was fine, so that's good. So, well, we have a chance to replace that hole. Grucey ends up going to Minnesota. Minnesota just made a better offer. They get a second-round pick out of that. But this is the one that this is, I think, a very crucial seasons 1 through 3. Sturgis, Arvedo Garza. He was the best running back. He was Rookie of the Year. He had the MVP. He has been the cornerstone of this offense. And the deal is when Welchmaner was not playing well, he always could guarantee you at least over 1,000 yards. And I don't think he wanted to come back. We talked about Welchmaner as a leader, and we talked about how it seemed that he would fail. In the second half, that it would go down a little bit. We had our doubts about Welchmaner, and in a couple of games where he's fumbled 3 times or thrown 3 interceptions. Now, it's not to take away with the ability that he has. He is a great quarterback. He's one of the fastest quarterbacks in the league, which allows a lot of offensive weapons to open up when there's no one downfield. Thank God this year he stopped throwing the ball, at least, so that he wasn't throwing into massive coverage, and then in a result could actually open up some of the games and gain a couple of yards by running through on his own. But we always talked about how some of the plays, and a lot of times where you would see Welchmaner run it in, I feel like this made it so that Sturgis felt unwelcomed here in Cedar Rapids. And if it was kind of one of those deals where it's like, if you're not going to appreciate me, I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's exactly what he did when he signed with Chicago. He opted out of being a restricted free agent. He didn't like the contract that was offered. And he ends up going, but they receive a first round and a third round pick. And if you're doing the math at home, that is 3 first round picks that they have. And they almost got up to 10 picks. And then I was sitting there, I was like, all right, so Trombo's on the line here. So what are they going to do with Trombo? Well, they resigned him. They signed him. They lose 3 crucial points of the offense, so Mike Tice is going to have his hands full. But they get Trombo back. And remember, Trombo's only 24 years old. He's got 6 eligible years. And so after this year, I'm expecting him to sign a major contract with this team. He has been absolutely a big factor here. Now, the only age-ineligible player was wide receiver Randy Rogers, so they re-signed Lawson Pecker. They got him, the wide receiver. They did re-sign Frank Fulcher, which I thought was a very smart move. This is absolutely very intelligent. He is a fan favorite in Cedar Rapids. The Fusion love him. He's from the old regime, but he stand tall. The biggest thing is Barron Sanderson, the right outside linebacker. Also a very big part of this defense, not a well-known part of this defense, and maybe doesn't get the attention that he deserves, but it's hard to find good right outside linebackers. Your middle linebackers get a lot of attention, but it's hard to find a right outside linebacker and a left outside linebacker, so re-signing him just saves it. And when you look at everything, going into the draft, they have $51 million that they were able to use. So they, at this time, just so you know, they're holding the 5th overall pick, the 17th overall pick, 19th round pick overall. So they have 3 first round picks. They have 4 second round picks and 4 later round picks. And then smart. I think this is smart. I think this is great. The Fusion traded their 19th overall pick, a second round pick, and a third round pick to San Francisco for the 2nd overall pick in the draft and a 4th round pick. So they have a conditional late pick, which is great. Jacoby Dutes never did anything as a running back for the Fusion. More so, you saw McGuire Heat play out there. They traded him for a 4th round and a 4th round pick to the Raiders for a 3rd round pick. So ultimately trading up in the draft class. Now, great job here. I think if you are going to get blindsided by the exodus of major parts of your offense, they did a great job filling it in. So let's cover this. Now, remember, Chris Williams also did not resign. Chris Williams stayed on for a year, stuck there as a good part of the cornerbacks, but now we have 3 cornerbacks that went to the Pro Bowl with McBurst, with Jones, and with the rookie Lamley. So, I mean, this is what they ended up doing. They filled the holes that they needed. With that 2nd overall pick, which they traded up, this was absolutely smart. They replaced Tonka Fool's Gold, and they got left guard Axe Shovelfoot. So, I mean, great pick there. That's excellent. They replaced the hole that they're going to desperately need. The 5th overall pick, Conan Redblood. They got him, very bruiser name, that old school mythology name. The 7th overall pick, they did pick up cornerback Mo Fear. So, I mean, the cornerback position should be very strong. He's great. They picked up a backup left tackle in Tex Cramps. They got their new right guard in Sam Brunchy. A backup right tackle in Viv Plath. Left end, they needed somebody there to kind of go between the left end and the right end position if they need, and Roxbury Hacksaw picked that up. They did need a new defensive tackle. They have still Collins under contract and Woodson, but they still need it just in case somebody goes down. CJ Bolts ends up getting drafted. And then they needed a backup free safety and strong safety. So they get Rumpel's Thumb at free safety, and then strong safety, Clappy Algrande is coming in to fill in the gaps. They also signed another running back in the free agents, Kaboom Lur. They got their backup left guard just in case things don't work out with the 2nd overall pick. They got Melvin Erickson. And then they picked up a Pro Bowler last year. His name was Phil Green. They picked him up. Now, the sad thing is that was a great pickup. Absolutely bolstering this line. They get who they need to get, and then he goes immediately he's out for the season after the preseason. He's gone. He injures his foot, fractured his foot. So they had to pick up another free agent, and they got Tony Castorani, and they picked him up for a 1-year deal. And then what they did is they got rid of, to try and make some cap room, and got rid of some of the ones that wouldn't affect the cap penalties. First of all, they got rid of their backup fullback when Yondu was out. They got Torrey Stanley out. They traded to Baltimore, got a 5th round pick. Mo Hale, it's not that he wasn't a solid part of this offense. He was a great backup. Didn't have to play much with Wynn there, but his contract's up next year, and he's 29 years old. He's ineligible. So they traded him to the Raiders for a 3rd round pick. That's actually really good. And then left outside linebacker, who we've never talked about on here, Dwayne Jackson. They traded him and 2 fifth-round picks to the Titans for a 4th and 6th round pick. So, I mean, they're already looking forward to next year. There's going to be, I think, 3 ineligible players. But here is what I think we need to address. I thought if anybody wasn't going to be here, I thought it was going to be Sturgis was going to stay. And Welchmaner might be out after next year. Because, again, they drafted last year 2 quarterbacks. And Cucini, he's prove that he can do it, and Romeo's back up there. I thought maybe if Welchmaner couldn't take them any farther, couldn't get them to the Super Bowl or whatever, he would be done, and they would put their faith in somebody else. But then Sturgis leaving to go to the Bears, opting to go to the Bears, leaves a big question. With this new rookie, with Conan, do we think that he's... I mean, time will tell. I'm not going to make predictions right now. I'm not here to make predictions because obviously I was wrong at the end of last season. I was optimistic last season. Now I got a lot of things up in the air. I don't really know. But this might solidify Welchmaner sticking around, honestly. I mean, like, really, when you think about it, he is the fastest quarterback in the league. You're not going to find a better scrambling quarterback, which works out really well into this offense. Plus, with the loss of Randy Rodgers, that bumps up Nelson, Walkenholtz, and then also Kahufel are all in very predominant roles. And when they use that 5-receiver front, which hopefully that'll still be in the playbook with Douglas, I don't know if it's really worth it to try and go out and find your franchise quarterback when he could be right there. Many quarterbacks hit their stride late. Now, I would say if Sturgis did stick around and the year ended, maybe then, knowing that you had Sturgis locked down for maybe another 4 or 5 years, your running backs there, your wide receivers are there, you just got to have somebody put it in their hands. And obviously, like in the case then, Cochini's got the arm to do it. I'm not saying you got to draft anybody, but maybe, maybe use one of your picks to get a quarterback that that would actually solidify himself, that fits into your criteria, into your game plan, into your positioning, into your offensive weapons. But now, I think there is a huge spotlight on our friend Welchmaner. I mean, by default, I think he played well last year, but I think by default they're going to need him to step up. And the defense is there. The defense is the solid part. I don't think they lost any major hands on deck, and I think they'll be okay. And especially if that backfield stays as dominant as they were, I would love to see more picks. But the offense really needs to come together, and Welchmaner has to play more like Season 3 and not Season 2. Because if he plays more like Season 2, I think it's very obvious that they will switch and go somewhere else. But if they do it where he plays like 3 and then they get farther in the playoffs, and maybe with Douglas's Super Bowl knowledge, maybe it will take this Cedar Rapids team into the next stage. And if he gets to the Super Bowl, I have no problem with him re-signing him. He'll just get better. That's ultimately where I think he'll stand. But if he doesn't, I mean, this offense might be for an overhaul. And then the other thing we got to keep in mind, right now, they're only sitting with $18 million in cap, which is great if they need somebody. However, for next year, there might be some choices made. Because again, Trombo re-signed as a free agent, restricted free agent. So that means that he's going to be looking for a big contract. And they could sign him all the way till he's 30. That's absolutely fine. But are you able to sign Welchmaner, Trombo, and then who else is going to come? I have a feeling we're going to lose some players in here in the next year. But we'll see how they play for now. All we can do is focus on this upcoming season, and that's all I really want to do. So let's stay tuned and see how this season plays out for the Cedar Rapids Fusion. And hopefully we'll be talking about a Super Bowl team next time we're on CorbinCenter.